Sorry.
Good, thank you.
Should remember by now.
Hi, and welcome to the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Today is Tuesday, October 3rd. And to get us started, Mike, can you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we do have a pretty full agenda tonight, and want to make sure that everybody has the various documents that Maureen has set out for us. So the item that we have as A on the agenda, we're actually going to talk about that second. First, I think we would like to cover the funding requests that were supported last night by the Board of Selectmen. Then we'll go in and talk about the grant opportunity that was authorized by the Board of Selectmen last night. And then we have an opportunity to review the senior and affordable housing bylaw package that is going to be presented at the Planning Board on Thursday. We'll get an update from our various members about any other meetings and how the project work is going on our initial 7 recommendations, and approve our meeting notes. So is there anything else that we need to add to the agenda for this evening? Okay. So the master plan funding request is a request that was initially approved here in our committee on September 5th. And we sent that to the Board of Selectmen, and that was then inserted into the warrant on September 11th. And then we wanted to make sure to get their support, if possible. So last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting, I was there to help answer any questions. And the document that you have, it's a handout with front and back. It says Master Plan Request for Board of Selectmen to support Article 12. So this is going to be supported now by the Board of Selectmen, and that designation will be in the booklet with all of the warrants for town meeting. So just to remind everybody, this particular money, the $80,000, is to help fund a couple of the different recommendations that were in the master plan. And those recommendations are to be able to create some scenarios for the Littleton Common, and then also the associated zoning, a couple different components of that, the diagnostic component and also the assessment of the zoning. Any questions or comments on that?
I'll just share on the record that you know, after our meeting last night, this follow-up, you know, we're going to be we successfully got the selectmen backing last night. Hopefully do the same with the FinCom last night. There were two points that I'd heard that I think we just need to be as clear as we can in addressing them to address fears or concerns. And one is that you know, how we arrived at the dollar amount estimates and how that's consistent with, you know, the market as we know it. And I'm confident that we can do that. But just knowing in advance that that's one consideration. And the other, and the word stuck in my ear is that, and this has come up a couple of times, that no matter how we present it, it's like, oh, we're doing more studies. Well, we're beyond the study phase now. That's the whole point of implementation. If we're not doing a good enough job of making that clear, I think we need to be clear. You know, this is moving from study to implementation, and that's what, you know, the specialist experts are all about. So for the public that doesn't pay a whole lot of attention, you know, you don't want to leave them with the impression that, gee, didn't we just blow, you know, a lot of money on studies, now you want more studies? We're going to make clear, it's like, if you wanted that study you just got finished participating in to work, this is what implementation money is all about, and make that distinction clear.
Yeah, I think a good way of thinking about it is, you know, those first levels of study are more along the lines of,
should we do one thing or another? And then once we reach consensus among the boards and the community, now this kind of studies, how would you go about it?
Right.
You know, what are the things you want to avoid? What are the pitfalls? And what are you striving for in order to maximize the advantages you, as a community, you would realize by virtue of getting one of these projects in particular done or not?
And the end products we're looking for are things that look like a consultant's report that comes back saying, you need to do X, Y, Z. If you want this goal, you need to do X, Y, Z. Right? So,
Any questions, Jonathan?
I think those are both very good points, and I think that really is the way we should push this, and I
Good.
think that's.
Hi, Gary, welcome. So we're covering item B first, and then we'll go back to A.
Regarding our request for money?
Correct, which was supported by the Board of Selectmen last night.
Oh, thank you.
So that takes us to B2, which is outreach.
unanimously, too. I think Cindy, you ended up voting for it, didn't you? Yes, she did, okay. She raised the appropriately tough questions.
So to your point about making sure that folks in town who are going to be voting on this at town meeting have information to be able to go off of, we have to have some outreach to the community. And so I wanted to brainstorm a little bit about what that would entail, and then we can go ahead and set those in motion to be able to make sure that we get out to folks. So.
Do we really anticipate, I heard the point you made about more studies, but did that come up at the Selectmen's Board meeting, or do we anticipate that kind of comment? These are not really big-ticket items in the scheme of things.
No, but, I mean, just trying to go through conversations, you know, in my memory there, that, you know, that word came up, or that characterization, it came up a couple of times, so I think it's, you know, I don't want to be overly alarmed by it, but I think it's worth, you know, along the lines of what Mike just said, proactively advancing it that way so that you avoid that issue. And in terms of outreach, I mean, some memo, along these lines, but maybe designed specifically for the town meeting voter, reminding them of where we were and where we are and where we'd like to go. A handout might be useful. I'll throw that idea out. If you're looking for outreach,
That would be good.
And that would be
Let's start.
distributed at the.
yeah, available
town
at the
meeting.
table on the way in, yeah.
All right.
You're only gonna have at the town meeting, in a fall town meeting, what are we gonna get, a couple hundred people maybe?
It's so always hard to
Always
tell.
depends on.
On the issue, right?
Unless there's some
on
big.
the articles. But
And there's nothing that's, there's no alumni field on the warrant this time around.
I mean, I think that's a worthwhile idea. I know that LCTV would probably be willing to, you know, have a couple of us come in to summarize that type of memo and hit on, you know, what the context of the requests are.
That looks like a good TV.
And, you know, they could have that available for viewing both, you know, on cable and on demand. And then, you know, we could probably, I know we were at the Board of Selectmen meeting asking for their support for the article, and that's fine. We're gonna talk to the FinCom, but once we get something more formal done, I'm sure we could get back on those if it was a brief presentation, you know, just because those are meetings that are watched. So maybe the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, because some of this stuff does affect the work that they're doing, in the Finance Committee, just because those are kind of the big ticket committees. And then, you know, anything that we can get out, you know, into the Independent, a short article that can be posted both in the Independent and on the, any Facebook sites. I'm thinking mostly of the Residents for Better Littleton, but anything else that's appropriate that people know about. Those are some of the ideas that I had.
The same piece of work, statement, handout, whatever, could be distributed in all those.
Exactly, right. We might tweak it for the medium and the audience, but, right, I don't think we have to do 5 separate messages. I think if we come up with one good succinct message that hits on the points and is enough to clarify and put it into context, because ultimately the voters will decide on their own, on the argument's merits. You know, we're certainly not trying to, you know, trying to give information, not necessarily influence outcomes. But I think if we do that, I don't think it would be that hard to do all those things.
I'd forgotten about the cable TV, and I think that is a great, in addition, outlet. The same sort of people who vote are the sort of people that watch those cable TV, you know, LCTV stuff, and, we've only got so many pages left on the calendar, so.
Right.
It needs to be
When is
done.
it, November what?
October 30.
October 30.
Oh, October
Yeah,
30.
right.
Oh, yeah,
Monday,
you're right.
October 30, yes.
All right, so yeah, so this, we'd have to get this done in the next week.
Yes. So do we have any volunteers who would like to take a stab at writing that press
Yeah, I'll
release?
volunteer Mike and Anna to go and do that, since you've already,
I'm willing, I'm perfectly happy to take a first pass at something, and then, you know, I think,
Okay.
you know, if Anna and I want to take it on with Maren supporting us, making sure we don't say anything totally erroneous,
yeah.
that's
I
fine.
think some of the documents that Anna's prepared over the past
Yeah,
week
exactly.
to address concerns that the selectmen have are a good place to work from, too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that, and I really don't think it'll take that long, to be honest. I mean, because I think we've done a good job of talking about it and debating it, and so now it's just a question of organizing it, which is easy enough to do.
I have a question on these points.
Yes.
You said there's 35,000 remaining from the last year's MPUSC, right?
That is correct.
Later on, it talks about, under funding derivation, additional 20,000 to be used from existing MPIC funds. Are we mingling the MPUSC and MPIC funds?
Well,
or
it
they
was
just migrate
originally-
over?
It's all master plan implementation.
It's all been migrated over?
It's all was voted as master plan funds, so we're.
Okay, all right, so
And
they're
what we're-
one and the same.
Right,
Yes,
and
they
to
are.
Gary's
Okay.
point, though, what we're suggesting is using 20,000 of an available 35,000.
Yes.
And keeping 15,000 in reserve for other purposes down the line.
Well,
That's-
that's already committed
Oh, it is,
Yeah.
to,
to my salary and.
Okay, just wanted to make sure
I
that
thought that was after that had been accounted for. No, wasn't there like 55,000? Yeah,
Paul is correct.
Okay.
So the derivation was originally that there was 55, and then we took into account the administrative costs.
Thank you.
Yep.
and then we still will have 15 after
Right.
we've
okay.
taken care of Maren and the. Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, I think that's a good point to make, is that
Yes.
we came under budget originally, and we're
Exactly,
using some of those excesses.
exactly, I agree.
Surplus from that, I think
I
it's a good
agree,
point to make.
that will be one of the,
And this is the recommended route from the finance director, too. Anna and I met, and Mike Zeldin met with Bonnie Holston, Fleck, excuse me, gotta get used to saying that now, but, and this, she's recommending that this is, I don't know, but this is an appropriate way to do it, I guess is the best way of saying it.
Right, exactly. Great. Any other questions on this particular item about the funding request?
No.
Okay. So part of the work that will be done through that funding request is identifying the various scenarios about what Littleton Common might look like, might contain, and it does include the aesthetics. And so typically we don't have audience members, but tonight we are very fortunate, we have 3 audience members. And so I wanted to open it up for public comment, because I believe that one of those comments might have to do with the Littleton Common. So do I have any public comment? Don't everybody jump up as one.
I have some questions, but I'll let PJ go first.
Okay.
Paul Avella, 94 Grist Mill. Madam Chair, if you like, we have the briefing on here, and if you want me to go through the slides somewhat quickly, not the entire brief, but at least a bit of it.
Sure.
To set the scene, I've already briefed the selectmen, a few other boards and commissions here in town, and this Thursday I'll be briefing the planning board on a Littleton Rotary proposal to place a gazebo on the common. It's donation. You'll see that we can move the slides, a $55,000 donation on the form of actual dollar contributions and contributions through in kind from other organizations and people. And we have it up here. So what you see here is the presentation I gave to the Rotary, to the Board of Selectmen this past Monday on the 25th, so a little over a week ago. So next slide, please. So the purpose I went before the board that evening was to get their approval that we were able to proceed with planning construction of donated gazebo on the common. Next, please. And why gazebo and why now? First, I want to give a little bit of background on Rotary. So the next slide, please. And all it was to show that where Rotary fits into this, that we work to change communities at home. Littleton's our community. and to help grow local economies are the main points of this particular part of the briefing. And a bit about local economies, we've all talked about how the revitalization of the common will contribute to the town overall. So that's how we tied that into Rotary's mission and how we approach the world. Next, please. Okay, I reiterated some of the master plans updates here in committee. You're all very well familiar with that, so certainly I'm not going to bore you with it. But certainly common revitalization is one of them. Next, please. Of the 8 strategy areas, the common was one of the 8. And then the 1 through 8 of the recommendations, next slide please, address the common. So setting the scene as to why we saw the common, as we think everybody in town does, as an important piece to our town. Next please. So this situation on there, the slide up, the picture on the right is north up. So looking at it that way, and then you can see the common area. And then if we move back to the left side now, you can see it's skewed 45 degrees for north up. But so what you see is where we would propose placing the gazebo, and I'll speak more about it in a second. If you look to the left of that picture, that's where the Veterans Garden is, Veterans Memorial. And then down the, pardon me, the lower right is where the Veterans is, and the top left, the garden, as we go through this. And we're looking at placing that, as you can see, against the, pretty much where the utility boxes are in that area. This takes advantage of not touching trees that are in the area, because we do not want to disturb the common in that way. It's an octagonal shape is what we're proposing, 20-foot diameter. The entire structure you see there with patio approximates 2,000 square feet. Next slide, please. Yeah, a bit more of a presentation as to what we're looking at. Next slide, please. Gazebo itself, this is a representation of one possible one. The cupola, the roofing, that's what we wanted to highlight here. Next one, please. You see off to the right-hand side a rampway, because we would make this ADA compliant. Next, please. Proposal of what the stonework would be. And with Selectman Monopoly here this evening also, after having presented to the board, to work in conjunction with the Selectmen going forward as to how this might be placed, where it might be placed, what are the steps to take before we get to final approval. Next, please. The benefits we saw for the town, certainly it's a focal point for the town. The common itself is that. But this would enhance the aesthetics of the common. A venue for various different events that may take place. And then certainly, if it's raining out, coverage for us. And part of the revitalization of the common that we've spoken about to contribute to it. Next, please. We've asked that it be dedicated to Mr. Donald Sturt's Rotarian as a Rotary gift to the town. One who's been very important to the town, very important to Rotary in general, and that's why we're asking for that piece of it also. I ended up with Urbane, and I write 50-cent words, but gosh darn it, those are the words that fit him perfectly. Absolutely sophisticated gentleman of learning, of letters, and wanting to help others learn also. So next, please. And I went through various things that he's done here in town, and internationally, and with Rotary in general, statewide, nationally, as I already said, in town and internationally. And I'll leave those slides for you to actually read through more in detail. So next, please. We're asking that it's a 12 by 18 inch granite plaque that would recognize it. Next, please. And where it might go if this rendition were the one that we settled on. The plantings you can see around, talk to the Garden Club. They are in support of this. What they'd like to see there is very low maintenance to almost no maintenance. We've talked with Littleton Light and Electric as far as providing power. Littleton Light and Electric will work with the commissioners and put it on their agenda in January, so for the new year, with funding to be able to do the electricity. And we've asked also that there be water available so that the plantings could be taken care of. Next, please. Financials. The proposed budget that we've come up with at this point is $55,000, with Rotary donating $45,000 of that. Donated labor materials approximately $10,000, so the cost of the town is zero. As you can see, I just talked about the power supply still in coordination because the commission has not yet approved the expenditure of funds. Importantly, a question always comes up: who's going to maintain it? Rotary is committed to maintaining it, and we ensconced that actually in a vote. So it wasn't just a case of some hands went up. We actually made a motion, a second, and voted on it to make it as binding as possible amongst ourselves that we would indeed live up to this commitment. Next, please. The timeline, which I don't have here because this is an old briefing now. As I said, it was with the selectmen. The selectmen have offered their support up to this point, wanting us to continue working with them. In fact, previous to this meeting, Deanna, Paul, and Cindy are upstairs talking about ways forward and what might be some of the next steps. I've been back to the Littleton Country Gardeners for the second visit, and they are supportive. And Linda Giannetta stepped forward to represent them and work with us as we're going forward. And as I said, this Thursday I'll be in front of the planning board. What we're asking for is put a timeline down, a line in the sand, so to speak, and seek the town's approvals by 22nd December. If it's something that doesn't come forward by that time, that it moves further into the future, and we'll work with that. But certainly that's our asking point at this point. Next, please. So the recommendation to the selectmen that evening was that they approve us continuing this way. I know this is not on the agenda, so perhaps it's not appropriate to ask you for a vote, but certainly everybody I've been speaking to, I've been asking for the support of the project. So it's up to you as to how you handle that piece of it this evening. At least it's an introduction to it for you all. I'll give you directions to what we're looking at, so for your consideration, and answer any questions you may have.
Since this is public time, could you just announce your name? And
He did.
He did?
He did,
You did?
yes.
Oh, okay, thanks, you caught
And
that.
listen to everything.
After all that.
There
I
are
wanted to make
plenty of
sure-
people that will come before us that wouldn't really know about that, but PJ, pretty
Good to
straight
know.
by the
He
book.
slipped that in there. So I just wanted to comment that having PJ talk about this, I think is just timely because we're discussing the Littleton Common and what that could look like in the future. So what I would recommend this evening, if you all have feedback to provide to PJ on what he just presented, I think he would appreciate that.
I'll even take notes.
Yeah, I do have a question, PJ, on the timing of this. We're looking at doing a study in the common, as you know. I would hate to have, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't anticipate the common triangle changing. It's probably around it, but there's always a possibility that it could be decided that they may want to do something with the space. And so adding something else prior to us really going ahead with that, I hate to have us, put something in and then say, well, it would be good if that was moved over 5 feet or something like that. So is there a timing urgency to do this now versus just waiting through this
Very
comment?
recently, we had a lengthy discussion to that very point, very recently, up to about 30 minutes ago. So it was discussed in depth. I don't want to be cute, but, fortune favors the bold. So we've come up with a timeline. If it's deemed inappropriate, we'll work with that. But if we don't put the line then in the sand and just say, this is a great idea, and it just becomes a great idea that's never worked on. So I'd rather be told, no, that's not the timeline that's going to be approved, and it's up to the selectmen to do that, then we work with it. But proposing it is tough moving forward, because personally I've been involved in enough, and as you all have, working with town government and things and trying to get some stuff going. Like we had a Littleton Common Committee instituted roughly 5 years or so ago. I believe they met twice, and nothing came out of it. Doesn't mean what you're going to be working for now. In fact, we've seen tremendous strides and advances in the participation and direction provided by certainly the master plan itself, the committee, you all now, which, by the way, you've greatly exceeded any vision I had. I got to be honest with you as to how much you really dig in and work hard at this. So I want to thank you on that. But what makes this sacrosanct? Nothing, absolutely nothing, other than if we don't propose a time, it never gets done.
Okay.
And to your point about the study, certainly we're trying to, at least we think we are, is integrate this as best as possible as to what we saw the vision that did emerge out of the master plan updates during committee process and the master plan 2030 itself, which everybody in the room here was on that. So I'm not going to be pedantic and repeat what we had in it because you're all very aware of it.
I think Gary brings up a valid point, but I think your rejoinder is also valid. You think about it in terms of probabilities. Of all the discussions that we had about the common during the master plan update process, nobody talked about blowing up the triangle and getting rid of it to literally redo the whole thing. It was more along the lines of developing along the lines and protecting what we already have there. I think was the consensus that we were reaching as when we were doing the community outreach. Now, that's not to say it won't happen. You're right. There's a probability that, one of the visions we see that we really like would say, oh man, I can't believe we have to move that, or worse comes to worse, raise it and do it again. So we should consider that, but I think we can move the process forward as long as we're all cognizant of those probabilities and just, be, thinking about them.
And if I may just answer the sighting piece, what I showed you this evening is a point of departure from our perspective.
Right.
The orientation of it is a point of departure. Certainly, we've had some input from other folks as to whether moving it 10 feet this way, 5 feet that way, reorient 30 degrees, 60 degrees, whatever. We're very open to a public process on that, and whatever consensus is achieved at that point as to the actual sighting and orientation of it.
Yeah, I think I'd like to sort of go along with this. Maybe I'd even go a little further. I mean, I think it's great that the Rotary wants to do this, and I think we will certainly, in one way or another, I mean, I think everyone would be very eager to see something like this done, but given the fact that we're just about to, we hope, get a consultant who's going to come up with several plans for what the common is going to look like and so on, I mean, it would be great if you would work with that. I think it would be great if you would work with that consultant and see how your idea would fit in with whatever thoughts that might come out of that.
I'd say we're not averse to working with anybody that you all suggest we do work with, and certainly like with the selectmen also. But at some point, certainly continuing to move forward, because we know the common, and the fact the study that now you just talked about the $80,000 for, is not just for two patches of triangle grass. It's for the entire
Yeah.
common overlay, which obviously those two triangles are very important to us in town because they serve as a nice green focal point in the center of town for us. So, go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to say, we do have another public comment to your public comment.
Can I add? This is Rob Houston, 20 Meeting House Road. I was just going to say, we're talking about, in essence, I think, two decorative triangles in the center of town, right? They are a focal point, but a decorative focal point, not an economic development focal point. We have the veteran group that wants a memorial in the same triangle, I believe, as the Rotary gazebo.
Opposite ends, and it's the Veterans Memorial that exists now.
So it's already there. I mean, we're not going to raise it from an economic development standpoint. We're talking about hiring consultants to provide economic development visionary scenarios, I believe. And I don't envision a scenario that they would have that would require or even suggest that we redesign the triangles that are celebratory, for lack of a better word. So anyway, that was my only comment. I don't see these as relevant these parcels as necessarily relevant to the economic or the development of the common area as a whole. Just my thought.
Okay, well, since I just had a long session with Paul earlier at the meeting he hosted upstairs, I wanted to make sure I heard everyone else's input before I reiterated some of the points I made earlier. But Rob's comments a moment ago make me want to point out that the common master plan for the common area isn't specifically, or exclusively, I should say, economic development. It's how do we want the whole thing to look, and how does it reflect the town's interest. So it isn't. I don't think the thought should be promoted that as long as it doesn't have a adverse effect on an economic development angle, then that's the only consideration. It's not. I think that we just went through a process where we got a lot of input, and I don't remember anybody specifically saying, let's put more things on the common. Protecting the common again is two triangles of property, and there's a lot of concern raised about how we approach the common area, meaning the common overlay area, and what vision we have for that. And had a lot of good ideas, and someone presented up there, and that's that's why it's our priority number one, and that's why we're going after funding to get professional help to get that done. I think specific to this proposal, I just think it's important, and Jonathan hit on this to a certain extent, that whether it's a gazebo proposal or anything else, anybody who's proposing an idea for the common property that's owned by the town ought to be looking to work within the context of the master plan implementation process. That being said, personally, I've got concerns on this, and that's separate from you know, as a selectman, as a member of this committee, I think the gazebo proposal ought to be vetted in that context of the master plan process. Personally, I think if I could characterize most of what I've heard from people historically about the common areas, the less you do with it, the better, other than, you know, putting curbs on or having some, you know, a few discrete benches or occasional picnic tables. The veterans part of it has been part of it for ages. It gets updated and is appropriately being updated at this time. But I think the burden is really ought to be very high before we commit to putting structures on that. And this isn't the first time the town has considered a gazebo proposal. We have a beautiful gazebo right now, and that was originally proposed for the Common. And eventually, it was agreed upon to have it over at Fay Park because it seemed more appropriate there, and it gets used in that context. Just seeing that map presentation, if this gets put in that triangle, and that, you know, that's just a performing venue, and you know, it may be a real nice one, but it's visualizing it's even more of a dramatic change than I imagined. I think we, as a rule, ought to set a high bar on anything we put on the Common that isn't just common. You know, Jonathan's a historian by trade. Common is not a park. A common is common pasture land, and this is not Littleton's center. This is Littleton Common. You know, and I've been, you know, recently scolded on that. The reality is the public perceives this as the center of town, and it is the center of economic and transportation activity. But at Littleton Center, we do have a gazebo in a park that's properly identified for that purpose. In Littleton Common, we are fortunate to have two beautiful pieces of green open space that are not overwhelmingly developed, and I think we ought to think long and hard before we go ahead and do that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
What were you envisioning the use to be? Do you have any thoughts about what that would be?
Certainly, you go back to that, it's about the fourth slide or so. I forget exactly. Frankly, my imagination is not enough to understand what maybe it all be used for. Certainly, it's a venue. Some of the things we do, it was, I think I call it the benefits. So it could be a few slides. Anyway, I'll speak to it. Whether it's a concert, a dance recital, we use that, as you see. Well, now we've recently been doing third Thursdays out of Fay Park instead of at the Common. We do the Christmas tree lighting, for example. We have the Neshoba Valley Chorale sing. So rather than just ground level with the people, they're actually up above it. And Santa Claus comes there. So I've got the slide up now. Thank you, Mara. Certainly, we viewed it as an enhancement to the aesthetics, and it becomes debatable. You know, Paul feels that it detracts from that aesthetic. So, you know, we'll have that kind of conversation. But you see,
Okay.
venue for events, it's certainly
Nothing particularly, thinking more like if you put it there, it might attract something, and we'll see kind of what happens.
It's not
for the
Field of
most part.
Dreams,
It's not-
build it and they will come. No, I didn't have that kind of vision.
Okay. Like I said, I'll just read my general, because I'm not necessarily adverse to it. I think Paul makes some good points about not getting too busy with the space. But I do think it's worth putting it as an item, as Jonathan pointed out, to our consultant and say, if we had one, where it might be. Because while we may not be impacting that triangle necessarily in the footprint of it, there could be a pathway that goes through that space that connects from A to B that would go right through where that spot might be, for who knows. Or I know there was some in our brainstorming sessions in the Common, we talked about a bridge between the two triangles, because they're two isolated areas, and we, you know, who knows is my point. So I'd hate to have something put in, right, but not have it be impacted by or constraining us in what we want to do in that area. That's been my general concern.
And what I had said to the selectmen also is that public hearings, I've offered at town meeting to a presentation if folks would think that appropriate. Now, it's to get the word out so that people could interact. Again, I'd put the timeline up there. If it's a timeline that the town chooses not to use, the town makes that decision, and we act accordingly. But not putting a timeline on is tantamount to not doing anything. Pretty much everybody on this board has done project management in some way, shape, or form.
have to put it on the calendar to make it happen.
Roger. And speaking of
Well-
the calendar, if you wish, on your next meeting, to agendarize it, is that a word?
It is now.
Probably not, but it works.
It's okay. And I'd be more than happy to come back
Okay.
and give a presentation where I'm actually asking for your support. Certainly appreciate the feedback this evening, and then move on from there.
Great. Thank you so much for
Thank
Giving
you
us
so
that.
much.
presentation. Do we have any other public comments? Public input?
Cindy Napoli, Springfield Drive. I just had a couple questions about your committee. I was trying to read your minutes on the town website, and I couldn't find any minutes after June of 2017.
You're looking at the update steering committee minutes. The implementation committee minutes are posted from June
So
through
it's on
August.
the wrong link? Okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah, we made that switch,
Yeah.
starting in June.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, good.
I'm sorry, starting in July.
Okay.
July, yes.
So that will probably answer my next question once I go do some research. Did you establish a budget for implementation? That was one of the last meeting minutes that I read. There was discussion about that, so has a budget been established for implementation?
You mean for implementation of the plan
Yeah.
itself? No, it was not one of the items that RKG put into the plan.
Okay.
There are, however, in the pages in the back, along corresponding with each of the different recommendations.
Right.
There is a particular item that is called estimated
Well,
cost.
sorry, let me see if we can get a clarification. Are you asking about the budget for the implementation committee or for the implementation of the action items in the master plan?
Yes, implementation of the action items in the master
Okay,
plan.
all right.
A budget for that.
So no, there isn't, just simply because the work that had been done during the master plan process, it's just too variable to be able to determine one big number.
There are estimates where we have them.
But there are estimates where we have them, correct.
And there was significant discussion about the fact that this is a vision, and implementation of the vision the vision itself is not designed to get down into the weeds. It's a vision, it's an overarching way to think about how we might do some things. It's not a recommendation that we do any of these things in particular, or in a particular order, or at a level of priority. It's just a jumping off point. And the process now is to present the master plan to the various committees that are in charge of implementing. We're not in charge of implementing. We're in charge of seeing that it is implemented, but
Okay.
we are not in charge of the implementation. It's
Right.
Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, the Planning Board, Zoning, whoever it may be. It'll be everybody eventually. If we get through all these items, every committee will weigh in on something at some point. Once, as a town, we decide that we want to contemplate undertaking one of these overarching projects, then we'll get down in the weeds and say, well, what exactly do we want to do in the common? Because once we determine exactly what we want to do, then we can cost it out. But until we know exactly what we want to do, we can't cost it out.
Right.
And this document is not designed to tell us exactly what we want to do on any of these. It's designed to give us a guideline, a broad view of what we think we want to do to improve the town in various capacities.
Right. So I guess that was gonna be my next question, was the process for implementation. Like you, as a committee, you decided that the common was gonna be the first course of action.
One of several.
Right.
One of
So,
seven.
Right.
Yeah, and we went around, you might recall, when we internally met in our first two meetings, I think we identified 7 specific topic areas based on
Right.
that process. And then we
Right.
went to the selectmen, the planning board, and the FinCom, and told
Right.
everybody, here's where our priorities are, and here's where we
Right.
want to go forward.
Right.
But
that-
more importantly, that there are just the initial 7.
Right.
That clearly
So
the
initial
intention is
7.
to get
So
through
it doesn't
all
go
of them.
beyond the initial 7 at this point, or,
From this committee's perspective, no.
okay.
But what we
But we
are
will,
asking
yeah.
all the committees to do is to look at the master plan and think about the things that fall under their purview, and if they decide to run, that's certainly their prerogative. And as a matter of fact, we would, in some ways, prefer it.
Yeah, and we assigned
We
out,
shouldn't be the ones determining what the priorities are.
Okay.
We have
fine.
our priorities because most of us on this committee went through the master plan update
Right.
process, and we got a lot of feedback from the community that
Right.
we think
So
is
you're-
worthwhile.
Right, so you're looking to Economic Development Committee, the Board of Selectmen.
Everybody.
Conservation Commission, yeah, so say if one of these things is a conservation item, our only job is, we've assigned out all the various committees to
Most part.
members here. Our
Right.
job is to go in and kind of prod those folks and say, hey, you know, there's 10 things in here that the town wants you to do.
Right.
You know, can you get doing it, and we can help you, yeah.
Perfect, all right, good.
We had the question at the first couple of meetings as to what is our charter? What are we doing?
Right,
And it was both a combination of advocacy of the things that we took out of the plan and accountability for those things to make sure that we keep the respective boards and committees on point as to the things that we thought the town basically said were the priorities, so that they start, say a rogue board starts wanting to do something different that's not anywhere in the scheme of things, what we talked about, hey, where does that fit in with this or prodding, as was indicated about, you know, hey, make sure you're aware of it, because if you're looking for something to do for next year's agenda, maybe there's a few things in here that you could tackle.
right. So do you refer to it as priorities or preferences?
Priorities, I think is the word we've been
Priorities.
using.
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
And just to follow through on the one that's right up now, this is a great exercise to go through, because it's the first one we're doing. We, you know, say we get the funding for the common master plan consultants.
right,
And they do their work working with us, and we've got the blessing of the planning board and the selectmen to do that. We'll come back with, you know, we'll conduct all the process. Anna has laid out a schedule for that. And when we come back with recommendations, then we come right back to the selectmen and the planning board and say, this is what our consultants and us and the public that we got feedback from
right.
want us to do. And here's what it's gonna cost, and here's how we do it.
Right, right. So I guess, as far as the consultant fees go, because you had said last night during our meeting, Paul, that, you know, obviously it's not gonna be the first time that we're asked to approve funding. So I guess that was my other question with the budget implementation. So it really does, it depends what comes up.
Depends on what we wanna do.
Can't
It
predict
can be
it.
as big or as small as you want, but I will say this, you know, that's a great question, and I think the FinCom's gonna ask it too. I'm happy to hear that, you know, since addressing the issue of the cost of the consultants anyway, that Myron actually has some more recent input on how accurate our estimates may be. Would you mind addressing that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to
Oh,
interrupt for just a
However.
second. Finance Committee wants
They want us
to
up there?
steer to
Okay.
in just a moment. But I had gotten some detailed information from Judy Barrett on costs of the zoning work that other towns are doing, and we're right in the sweet spot,
Okay.
below most, and
Perfect. All right, good.
And something that we could decide to do is, if we want to, again, hire a consultant, we could drill down and put some real numbers against some of those items in there to get a sense of the cost of every single thing. Because right now, they just basically gave like a AAA guide of $3 signs, $2 signs, $1 sign, to
Right.
give some sense of scale. But that's something that, could be pursued if there was interest in that.
And, some of the things have been things that we do, and we've asked for this money, but then just speaking of one item, I'm in the Historical Commission, and the Historical Commission has hired a consultant to do one of these projects, and we have got from the CPC, we've gotten $20,000 to work on that, so that's another part, but it's not under our purview directly, but it is part of what's in the master plan recommendations. So there'll be other things like that, I'm sure, as well, but we should.
Thank everybody for your comments. If you have any other questions, would you be able to come back after we go to FinCom, or did we help address your
I just
questions?
wanted to add really quickly that I'm going to, as far as the gazebo project, I'm going to meet with the Sturts brothers on Monday, just to get a visual. I think there is some potential there to tie it in nicely with the Veterans Corner project. So I don't want to totally discount the gazebo, but I just kind of want to get a visual and have more conversation going forward about that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great,
And that's
thanks for
all.
that update.
These answer my questions. Thank you.
Terrific. So our committee has been asked to go upstairs to brief FinCom, and so we're going to stop videotaping for now.
Take a short break.
Take a short break.
Chris, if you could put up a board saying that we'll be back in a few minutes?
Right, so we'll head upstairs and then
We will be
we'll back.
remaining in open session
Yes.
while we're up there.
Yes.
When the board reconvenes, I won't be here. I got a friend who broke down, I gotta go pick him up, but I am gonna go to the FinCom. I told him to wait. Okay. Well, I will be doing that later, as I say, I gotta
Alright.
pick up Chuck Powers, whose car broke down, but I'll pop later.
You want Rob to go get this guy?
Yeah.
I'll be back. How far is
Do
it?
you want
I'll
Rob
go
to
get
go
him.
get this guy?
Actually, he's up at, what's it, in, Tall Ball Guy.
Yes, I'll come.
Right up the street from here. Oh, used to have gas pumps there, but no, he's,
You wanna go get him?
no, I'll get him. I told him I'm gonna be out of here soon anyways. Who am I thinking of? Mark Shapiro, Tall Ball Guy.
Oh, okay, there
I'd say
you
that
go.
to his face. That's
Yeah,
right.
there you
I
go.
didn't say short, fat, red-headed guy. That's Dirks are great guys.
They are great guys.
Yeah.
They
And
were
their
guys.
dad was a great guy. This is nothing
Yeah,
about that.
well, and he's a veteran too, so that's why they got involved with the veterans.
Oh, I didn't realize they were involved with that.
Yeah, they're the ones that are working with me on the veterans group. So, we'll see.
Yeah. If we end up disagreeing on this, I don't mind that, as long as the right process is.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, it's always okay.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree.
Well, how much of this is just branded commerce? Commerce. You know, it's already got a clock you can drive by and you can't read it.
Yeah.
And if you really want to know what time it is, you look at the Baptist church.
Right, yeah, this is true. I know.
As I mentioned, I have a friend who's broken down car, he's been picked up and driven to a bar room, so I will see you all later.
Okay, we are back,
Okay.
and we are back online. Thank you for coming back to be with us. We just returned from visiting with Finance Committee, and they also support the funding request to have consultants for the Littleton Common and for zoning related to the Littleton Common. So we are highly supported this evening. That's good to know. Let's proceed with our agenda for the evening. We still have quite a bit of work to do. Let's return to item A, which is a grant opportunity. And the grant opportunity, as I'm told, is very rare, but actually is one that could benefit all of the work that we're doing for the master plan. Lauren and I had an opportunity to go into Boston on Friday morning to the Bidders Conference for this particular grant. It is from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. It is a grant for up to $50,000, which fits, and we being the master plan itself, fits well into what the project criteria is and what the evaluation criteria is for this particular grant. So part of what we have to do for this is prepare a proposal for the grant by October 23rd.
Who's this we you speak of?
Hey, you don't
Funny
think
you
Paul
should
left
ask.
for a reason, do you? So, the we is we sitting at this table. We have Maren to do a lot of the heavy load for us, given her expertise. But as committee members, we also have a responsibility to try to input and contribute to that writing, the editing, the thoughts that need to go into that to try to be competitive.
Maren, what's your experience with this type of thing? And I'm not trying to direct this, but would we be out of line to ask you to make the first pass and then we provide input? Or are you looking for input from us to shape the initial shape, or create the initial shape of the proposal?
I appreciate you asking. First thing I have to say is I'm on vacation next week.
Okay.
The Board of Selectmen did vote to support the
Authorize.
MPIC, to authorize the MPIC to put in a grant application. I will be getting help on proposed scope of services from Judy and Eric. So they decided that they would team up and help us with that part of it.
I'm sorry.
Let's see, Judy Barrett of Barrett Planning Group and Eric Halverson of RKG.
Oh, right, okay.
Right.
Ones who worked on the,
That worked on the master plan. They didn't feel at all put upon to help us out, at least outline that portion of it. I'm happy to put together the final for submittal and help where I can, but I'm not sure my writing format is, I can't quite explain things very well, either in speaking or in writing.
So what are Judy and Eric going to do for us?
Just outline the scope of services for the
Okay.
project. What would the project's Littleton Common and zoning bylaw work? What's the difference between the $100,000 contract and the $150,000 contract, would be one way of looking at it. And pick those items that fall into the grant criteria.
Right.
So Maren and I had an opportunity to talk through what the timeline would be, which is, if you could pass one over to Gary.
Sorry.
Thanks, sorry.
Okay.
Because we are in a pretty tight time frame. And so what we discussed was if Maren could have whatever she can get to us by Friday, and then, given that she's out of town next week, that we members, along with other folks who are also integral to working on this, and have yet to be contacted, so we want to be able to work with them to be able to continue the version that Maren hands to us on Friday.
So, yeah, so we have a skeleton already, and
Yes.
we'll certainly be looking for, to flesh it out and provide direction.
And given that some of you have written proposals before, I have no doubt that we'd be able to have enough brain power to get this done.
Now, this is, I'm skimming through it, and it seems like an environmental sustainability bent to this.
Exactly.
It does.
And so how does that necessarily play with the common?
Well, it's interesting that you should ask. When we were there, we did specifically ask if the revitalization of the common and the associated zoning would fit into the project, the type of projects they would like to fund, and they said yes. Specifically, they are most concerned about making sure that we are having outreach with folks in town, and that this is stemming from the master plan. Specifically on page 4, Gary, of the grant RFR, it actually identifies third bullet, rezoning for consistency with the master plan or implementation of specific actions or recommendations.
Okay.
Right, and zoning comes into the discussion on page 3 as well, zoning that results in permanent land conservation. Number 3 at the bottom of page 3. Yeah. So if we are able to do a deeper dive into zoning discussion, TDR would be one discussion to have.
Now, our zoning item this got funded, or proposed to be funded, is not just zoning restricted to the common, right? It's zoning
Correct.
townwide, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, from the correct one. Okay.
Yeah, but Anna was able to ask that type of question at the information session we went to on Friday, and it seemed to be very well received. Said if it's funding to do a master plan and not likely to get funding to implement a portion of a master plan would rank higher.
Oh, so we're in a very good position
We
at
are,
this point.
yes. yeah.
And so the point that was raised upstairs as to, I guess this is maybe more of a Cadillac version, is now, of, what we get out of this versus the functional, but not maybe as in deeper dive that we're gonna get with what we're proposing with the current budget. Do you see what those differences are? Is it more like running an outreach? Is it something we do with a tail end? Like we get to a point and then we ask them, say they develop a particular concept deeper, which makes a natural progression to me of a secondary element, or
Actually, the
more
timing,
intense of
right,
the
the
first
timing
piece.
works very well to wrap it all together. We'll learn October 30th if we're funded for the MPIC work, and the grant application is due October 23rd. He said, Kurt Gartner said about a month to make the decision.
Okay, all right.
So we would know if the funding was coming and could include that in the contractor contracts.
Okay, that's timely, okay. You realize how fast
So
that's
this
gonna
would be part of, would it be part of the common contract, part of the zoning
Yes.
update contract, or both of them? When you said yes, I assume you meant part of both of them.
Well, that's for the board to decide if you're looking for one RFP
I
or
think it depends a little bit on how we write the grant application.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
the way we write it will constrain how we spend it if we get it, to a degree.
Yeah, to a degree.
And that you should write it in a manner that you're not overly constrained, that's.
Exactly.
that's-
And the state doesn't care whether we have one consultant or two.
No, they're
or
right. They just care that you said you're gonna use it on this, you can't use it on
You're
something
getting this
else.
amount of work done.
Right. Directed towards these efforts, and you can't all of a sudden build a baseball field with the money.
Exactly.
No, but if we're doing an update to our overall zoning, and we have agriculture, and we have housing, that
Oh,
we're
you'll
trying to
have
be more
flexibility.
sustainable,
Yep.
that we could indicate that we're gonna be looking at those elements in our zoning. It's not exclusively for those particular things.
Correct.
But we're trying to
But
better adapt for those kinds of
Again,
things.
as long as it is something that is applicable from the master plan, and they can see that evidence, I think that it would be viewed positively.
Okay.
so, and I'm glad you brought up the sustainability piece, because input from the State Sustainability Committee, I think, will be important to put together a strong grant application.
I'm happy to commit to reviewing during this timeline. I have the time to do that. I already committed to something else tonight, so I'm not going to bite off another chunk of the apple. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I can review. I can't take the leading effort, but I can definitely review, hopefully in a timely manner.
Mr. Jonathan, do you see yourself being able to jump in here in any capacity?
Still, I can certainly, I mean, I can certainly look into things too. I mean,
If we take a slice of it and say, we really need help with this piece or that, then
Well, hey, start. For some reason, we just don't have the resources to get it done, we'll find out soon enough. And we just won't apply. I think there's a low probability. I think we're all committed to these types of opportunities that we'll get it done.
Yep.
But there's no reason, we're not gonna say stop right now.
Correct.
I mean, it does seem like it's something that just fits in with where we are.
we're in a very sweet spot for this particular grant. I've not seen a grant application proposal like this.
And especially one from a
last 6
timing
years.
perspective that fits where we are as a
Yeah.
community. Right,
Oh, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
yeah. And I'll see if Mike Zeldin, who is off in Europe, can have a few minutes to also assist in between his ouzo and wine.
She's just eating pasta and ice cream. So gelato.
Yeah, right.
Let's see,
There is a difference.
is there any other question about this in particular? No? Okay, great. So we also have an opportunity to discuss the senior and affordable housing bylaw package. Maren, you have that agenda item?
Sure. Thank you. And I have had to color code them because it's a lot of information. Let's see, earlier today, Kirby, Dolac, LCTV, let's see if I can get this up or not. Nope. Shoot. Okay, I'll play with that for a little while and try to get that, the right view for you. But he put on demand on LCTV, 3 different PSAs. One's about 2 minutes, one's about 4 minutes, and one's about 20 minutes, explanation of the zoning bylaws that are proposed for the fall town meeting. It's Articles 5, 6, and 7 that deal with senior and affordable housing. Article 5 should be a little bit familiar. That's the senior residential development bylaw that was brought to the Maytown meeting that lost by 4 votes. Judy will be at the town meeting to help present and help answer any questions. Going with the things happen for a reason, we have been able to beef up the bylaw a little bit. I think it is a stronger proposal than it was at the Maytown meeting, but the general idea is the same. By special permit, property owners with more than 2 acres can apply to the planning board for a special permit to allow cottage dwellings, which would be small, single-family homes, duplexes, townhomes, or assisted living facilities, or a proposal that covers a range of those different types, different housing types. Not going to be age-restricted, but would be age-targeted, and you do that through design and of the site and through architecture. And the special permit criteria does include that it has to be consistent with the goals of the master plan. So that, it's very heartening to see how the master plan is influencing a lot of things that are happening. The second piece, Article 6, is another zoning bylaw amendment that is inclusionary housing. This bylaw would require any residential development to have an affordable component. If it's a small residential development, then the developer and the planning board could choose to have a payment in lieu of affordable units on site. Where do those payments go? Over to Article 7, when you create Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the payment in lieu of would go to that fund. Littleton Affordable Housing Trust could also get, if CPA and the town meeting voted, CPC funds could go to the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund. CPC funds, they can get grants, they can get gifts, and their sole purpose is to support affordable housing in Littleton. I never know where people are in their understanding of the bylaws and what kind of questions. I just wanted to throw it out there that, we do have these bylaw proposals. The planning board public hearing is this Thursday night at 8. But, questions before that, after that, anytime are appreciated.
Can I ask one question right now?
Yep.
So on Article 6, the zoning amendment for inclusionary housing.
Yeah,
It says it'll apply to any residential requirement requiring a special permit from the planning board or any multifamily or mixed-use development resulting in a net increase of 6 or more dwelling units, or any subdivision of land that would permit construction of 6 or more dwelling units in a conventional subdivision filed with planning board under general law, So basically what we're saying here is that if you come for a special permit, you have to agree to do the affordable housing. If you are doing a multifamily or mixed-use development with increase of 6 or more, you're going to be constrained by this. Or if you're doing a subdivision, regardless of whether it requires a special permit or not, even if it doesn't, but it's 6 or more dwelling units, you would fall under there. So someone building a house on a lot wouldn't be, that wasn't a special permit, no worries. But a larger development or a special permit development or a multi-use development, those are the ones. And we're thinking those are typically the bigger developers that we would think that's who we want to hit up to contribute versus an individual.
So it seems like almost anybody except somebody who's building a single-family home or a
Single
couple
lot.
of homes, I guess.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then there are provisions in here so that a developer would not segment a project
Correct.
just to avoid this.
Right, how they go about, once they fall into this, there's a lot of detail in here, and everybody should do their own due diligence. I just want to make sure I understood who it's targeting, and once they're under the umbrella, there's a lot that they have to be able to do that truly makes it inclusionary housing versus just affordable housing,
Yes,
or low-cost housing. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
thank you,
And
that's really the only question I had.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like it would be a good opportunity to be able to attend the meeting on Thursday night and hear public comment and hear what the
Yeah.
Yeah,
presentation is.
or watch us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that affordable housing and not just affordable housing, but varying the types of housing available in Littleton were big things that came out of the master plan update process. And these particular articles drive towards that. They're not the be-all and end-all, but they're certainly an effort towards addressing those types of concerns that were raised during the master plan update process. And for me personally, I think it's important to do that. I didn't, during the master plan update process, I didn't hear anybody saying how we would do it, what are good strategies. These are a start for some strategies for doing that. So I think it's really worthwhile for us as the implementation committee, if we can get there, and to certainly make sure that we're ready to, answer questions that people might come to ask us, and then hopefully it'll get supported.
Right, and actually, the housing implementation section does call out these three.
Specific,
Specifically to get
specifically.
done,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I know this is not a planning board meeting, maybe a question for Thursday, but any sense from the development communities as to they would write the check or do the housing?
The sense from Judy Barrett was that most developers would prefer to write the check and it is a negotiation between between the
They can't
town
just
and the
choose to.
developer. It's,
In some category, I think you do just write the check, I think, is this one.
well, between 6 and 19, it says if the developer and the planning board agree, then they can go that
Above that, they
route.
have to do, above that, they have to do the housing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a sense as to what the outreach is going to be for the community around these particular articles, just because of
Right, well,
what happened last time?
if I could, I can't get the display to work correctly, but there are 3 PSAs that are on demand and also showing now on the government and public channels of LCTV. Planning Board public hearing will be this Thursday evening, Thursday the 5th and Thursday the 12th at 10:30 in the morning. Council on Aging is having a meeting, and I'll be presenting at 1, and Planning Board member will be presenting at the 2nd. If there is interest, we'll certainly schedule another public information meeting.
Okay.
It's hard to tell now what else will be needed.
I got a flyer from Elder Human Services, like a newsletter. I've never gotten an elder, I'm getting older, I know, but I've never gotten.
I gotta say, I had the same reaction, Gary. What? When did I get on that list?
So I'm assuming it was a blanket.
Some of us get them all the time.
I send them back.
I've never gotten one before, so I was like,
And
oh,
then
okay.
this,
So I need to do an outreach already.
the purple one with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Now, is this something that is widespread?
Yes, yes. Most towns around us have an affordable housing trust fund.
And does it work?
Yes, yes. It's, the trust fund would, there'd be a steering committee that, see, here again, I'm lost for words. There would be a committee that oversees the fund, and they're limited in what they can do by the bylaw. It's all in support of affordable housing in Littleton.
But I think the idea about that one is, yes, there would be some money, and how successful they are at attracting more money through whether it's CPC grants, gifts, or whatever, is one facet of what their operations are about. But I think it's also important to realize that just having that committee in place keeps the idea, the concept of affordable housing more to the front of debate than it maybe otherwise would, when it kind of falls through the cracks a little bit. There's different boards that will consider it at times, but nobody owns it day in and day out. And this committee would really own some of that day in and day out. They wouldn't be the sole authority on affordable housing in Littleton, but they could be like a lot like us, where they're prodding those other committees to say, what have you done for us lately, and where are we going, and how are we gonna get there, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, and on top of that, their housing trusts are often able to gather the interest of affordable housing developers, or to help fund projects that the town wants to do. There's long been talk about veterans' housing. How do we as a town address that? Possibly through the Housing Trust Fund.
And so the idea would be that they would actually build housing,
Or accept grants to allow the town to build. Yeah.
Well, that's what I
Yeah,
mean.
right.
Or to possibly even purchase.
Purchase property, accept a gift of property, a lot of things that a lot of the other boards can't do.
So this could do that, and Why wouldn't the housing authority do that, or be able to do that?
It's a legal question I can't quite answer. My understanding is that they are set up under different statute.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Maren, for
Yeah,
providing
thank
that update to us. We look forward to being there on Thursday if we can. So a couple more items on our agenda. Do we have any updates from any conversations with other committees that we'd like to share?
I did meet with, an opening meeting with the Sustainability Committee, just to.
Excuse me?
I met with the Sustainability Committee. It wasn't on their agenda, so I didn't feel I was appropriate that I get into in detail, other than to say that my intent is to have a follow-up meeting with them when I can get on their agenda, and I did generate an extract of all the sustainability portions of the master plan. That's why I wanted that Word file, so I could look for the word resilience or sustainability and give them here's all the places where this came up. So I gave them an extract of the master plan related to that.
Terrific.
So hopefully they can look through that before the next meeting and maybe pick one or two things that they can work on. Unfortunately, I've not done anything else that was on my charter. I've reached out to a few other committees, but I haven't heard back from a few of them, so.
Okay. Sounds good.
Done a lot more than I have, so.
I have nothing to report on that yet,
Okay,
forthcoming.
thank you. And any update on any of the 7 initial projects, of anything that folks might know about, other than
We just
the
got
common and
approval from 2
zoning?
boards to support our
We did, that's
petition
great.
for money.
One of those 7 projects, I think, one of those has to do with the Historical Commission. And while I'll know more about this after our meeting tomorrow, I know our consultant seems to be well underway in doing her work and selecting the survey, the properties to survey, and she seems very competent, and we feel that it seems to me, at least, I can't say we feel because we haven't seen it, we'll see it more tomorrow, but it seems to be moving along very well, and I think that's been a good, it will turn out to be a very good project so far, of course. It's mostly just sort of getting underway, but
Great.
it's coming.
We'll be looking forward to seeing that. Great, let's see, the minutes from the September 5th meeting. Anybody have any comments on those?
Nope.
Nope. I don't have any comments either.
Motion to accept the meeting minutes as written.
Second.
Next second, thank you. And I think before we depart this evening, we should probably
take a vote on
discuss. Oh, yes, let's vote,
All
sorry,
those-
thank you. Process. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the minutes from September 5th have been approved. Now, for a final meeting, or not a final meeting, but the next meeting, I was wondering if maybe we should meet one more time, or at least identify a date, so that if we need to meet particularly about the grant or any outreach for the master plan article, that we have that on our calendars. I know we're all going to be participating in helping
I
with
think
the
it's a good
review of the
idea to
grant.
at least put it on the calendar, and we can decide after the fact if we truly need it or not. So, town meeting is on the 30th.
When does Michael get back?
He returns on the 22nd.
Well, we could meet that week.
So sometime on the 24th?
That'd be after the grant, though.
Oh,
That's true. So the question is, do I meet before he gets back or not? The advantage is that we could talk about the grant.
We probably should do it before the grant.
All right. So that would be the week of the 16th.
Yeah.
I can do Tuesday.
Yeah, it looks okay.
Tuesday the 17th?
Yeah. Let's just put it in, and We're either gonna get a quorum or we're not gonna get a quorum, and even if we need to do it, we may decide we don't need to do it, but.
Okay.
If we don't have a quorum, it might be a small working session.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly, it could be focused on the grant and the,
Yeah.
and the prep for the
Okay.
town meeting.
Okay.
And I finally figured out what I was doing wrong.
Do you wanna go over it? Do you wanna show it?
That's up to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do I take the 4-minute one? I can- Oh, come on.
This was sent out or something, wasn't it?
This is on the LCTV website, so it's being shown on TV.
Consistent with all the work that's been done over the last 2 years with the master plan, Article 5 will give us the first opportunity to have age-targeted housing that is different from just single-family housing. We will now have the chance to have apartments, condos, 2 families. We can have assisted living under this bylaw, all done by special permit through the planning board. It also gives us the opportunity to have independent living and continuing care facilities built in Littleton.
Article 6 addresses the master plan housing strategy number 5. It's the second part of the 3-part package. Adopt inclusionary housing bylaw to require affordable housing in any residential development. It adopts a zoning bylaw to increase the supply of housing that is available and affordable for low and moderate income households, including seniors, to encourage greater diversity of housing in Littleton, and to develop and maintain housing that is eligible for inclusion in the Chapter 40 subsidized housing inventory. Developments of 6 or more units would be required to provide on-site affordable units or to pay a specific fee in support of affordable housing. This zoning bylaw would apply to all developments with 6 or more residential units, requiring that 10% of the units be deed restricted as affordable.
Article 7 is a general bylaw, and it's third part of the 3 bylaw package for senior and affordable housing. Article 7 would establish the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund. All 3 of these bylaws proposals are a direct result of the Littleton Master Plan. Article 7 would establish the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust to build local capacity for housing advocacy, housing finance, and affordable housing development. It establishes a Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund to create and preserve affordable housing. Funding for the trust can come from the Community Preservation Act, from appropriations, from inclusionary zoning payments from the inclusionary housing bylaw, as well as from other sources.
Folks, I'm just shooting from the hip. I know when I present this, I look like I'm reading it to you, but I want to explain to you how passionate I am about this. It's the most important planning we've done to date in the 2.5 years that I've served on this board. I want to encourage you to come out and support this. It's important. It's in the master plan. It's something that this town has worked hard on. We have worked hard on. My board, all the members of the planning board have worked very hard on this. Please support it.
The planning board has included the Council on Aging and Elder Human Services at every step. We really appreciate this, and we think this is a very good set of bills. This gives us a chance to do something different, have different kinds of housing, have affordable housing, and the monies that are available in the trust fund could be used then to build senior housing and affordable housing in town. We also will be having meetings to talk about this. On October 5th and October 12th, we're having meetings in the Council on Aging during the day to get a chance to go into more detail about the 3 items and give you a chance to ask your questions.
Our planning board's having a meeting October 5th also. I think this is an agenda item that's on at about 8 o'clock. If you have any questions, comments, please come down, speak to us. It's open to the public. We'll provide you with all the information, and instead of me reading it to you, you'll actually have a printed copy. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Stars are born every day.
Get music, too.
All right, so do we have any other business? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank
Oh,
you.
we gotta vote.
Oh,
have to
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, aye, aye.
Now we're-
Thank you.